Welcome back, everybody, to Disclosure Team for another live interview. I'm still going to get used to doing this intro now that I have a co-host. So let's just bring her in. We're waiting for Dan to arrive. So, guys, please welcome my co-host, Katie Howland. Katie, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to have you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation if he ever gets here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we just said that Dan was coming to get everyone to show up because he is my favorite.
Nah, he'll be here. But before he gets here, we've got a few talking points. We might as well jump into one. And I think it's an important point is discussing the UFO community and how it breaks down with podcasts and people from different angles. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been chatting actually with Dan about a lot recently and other folks is how do we grow the community in a really positive and productive way? You know what I mean? Because I think we have kind of hit our saturation with podcasts and interviews and things like that. And so the question becomes, how do we develop systems and projects and research that not only broadens the tent, brings more people in, but also is a higher quality of engagement? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all up, if people want to do podcasts, I'm all up for it. I was, the same when I started, but I do think you're right that going forward with everything that's happening, with Congress and Arrow now sort of picking up the pace a little bit, that there is room for us to do more, and not just talk about doing more on Twitter and things like that, because it's very easy to say, oh, I'd like to do this or I'm going to do this, but to actually go and do it is a different story. So,
Absolutely. And I think you could do everything from advocacy organizations to private research grants to, feature film projects, independent research. And I know Dan has a lot of ideas in that realm. So I think he might be in our green room.
I think he is. So let's bring him in and we can actually continue this part of the conversation. So guys, and everybody in the live chat, thank you for being here. I didn't do the intro. It threw me off because I'm not used to this new thing. But everyone, please keep the chat cool, calm and collected. Please pop any questions in capital letters and we will try and ask them at some point. But let's bring him in. He's coming all the way from Mexico. My good friend and colleague, Dan Zetterstrom. Here he is.
Hello. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late, but I know that you guys can hold down the fort like professionals. So, sorry, I was on the Mexican kind of chill time where you ask for the bill, and maybe 20 minutes later, someone thinks about bringing it, and it works pretty well most times, but not today.
I'm glad you're here. Yeah.
So you all coffeeed up, ready to chat about ancient sites and UFOs and everything?
All coffeeed up. I was in a cafe and I was kind of grabbing a bunch of photos and things like that for the things that we're going to talk about today and just putting them in an album so that, you guys kind of get to see the concise traveling bits, the cool bits instead of just pictures of dogs. Nice, as cool as that is.
Listen, me and Katie were just talking about something, but I'm just going to highlight this comment here. So it says, so Vinnie, can we talk about the elephant in the room, tuna on pizza? Trust me, we will get to that. It is on the list of things to talk about in the show.
I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Oh, it's like Pizzagate 2.0.
It was that whole conversation went from, the discussion of the usual questionable pineapple on pizza, and then it went to this whole new level, So we'll discuss that trajectory and people can get angry about it.
Not to mention the fact that some people legitimately thought I had quit the show over it. Which, to be honest, there was a small moment where I considered it, but I'm here.
That's cool. But yeah, Dan, so we were just talking about the UFO community, how we can kind of grow going forward. And Katie was suggesting more advocacy and more private research and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on how we can move forward, for the rest of this year at least?
Yeah, for sure. So we're hitting this new level now, and I think we need to kind of think back to what Lou was talking about. I think he spoke about it one of the first times on your show, Vinny, on this very show. I forgot where it was then, but it was to do with the 5 pillars, where Lou was talking about all the different areas that we kind of need to consider when putting forward the UAP conversation, and they were kind of split into various groups, but one of them was social stuff. one of them, and by which I mean like social media conversation. And then we had kind of political advocacy, as well as kind of talking to the wider world. Because, you know, we've got a bunch of people here, there are a bunch of people in the conversation, but we're kind of all already switched onto it, right? Like, it's preaching to the choir. There are almost 8 billion other people on the planet that need an on-ramp for this. So I think things like, you know, Tom DeLonge's approach, kind of thinking of Monsters of California and kind of seeding these ideas in. You know, Steven Spielberg was probably one of the earliest to kind of start doing that. And in hindsight, we started realizing, hold on, this guy was being told stuff. Even down to the Ariel school, you know, we've been told that story got out and as big as it was because of him. So there's a huge place for entertainment to kind of bring people on board. But as well as that, political advocacy. So there's a lot of kind of road for us to do stuff like that. And Katie, I know that's your background. So coming up with kind of, what's the word, like lobbying groups and things like that. You know, we hear about big oil lobbying Congress to get their way. Where are the UAP groups? You know,
where's big UAP?
Yeah, right. If I was Elon Musk, I would start a lobbying group. Apparently, these people will roll over for very little money as well. So we could probably get this going quite quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, there's comments here about doing something similar to the Big Phone Home, which was great. But I think, you know, one event here and there, it needs to be something maybe now with the way things are moving is something coming from a slightly different angle. And that's not to take away from the positive impact of the Big Phone Home. It's more about doing it in a new way and probably more regular and constant. But one thing I've seen on Twitter is, you know, a lot of people have been contacting the Pentagon and the DoD. And I think, you know, yeah, maybe we could put something out that shows people how to do that. But other than that, I think people can get off their own let's say it and do more. Yeah.
I mean, you're right, and I think the Big Phone Home made a great start, and I think it's time to kind of grow on some of those lessons. And one of the things I've seen is a need to really have a coordinated advocacy ask and message so that we're all on the same page. We all have different ideas of, you know, what we want, whether we think it'd be great to get more gimbal footage or whether it would be great to get more money for Aero or whatnot. But I think we need to, you know, as a community, come together and have these discussions.
Yeah, I completely agree. We can kind of all be a bit split sometimes. And, you know, folk like Nick West, he'll say the UFO community is if we all believe one thing, when the truth is it's kind of only a loose affiliation of you know, believing that something else is here that kind of describes us as a community. Beyond that, we all have completely different beliefs and we're all across, you know, the spectrum. I'd say that all three of us are kind of quite centrist on the issue. You know, we want to follow the data. We think there's something there. We want to figure it out. You have people all the way over on the other side. I wouldn't say what's right and left here, but, you know, some people believe that there are beings from Zeta Reticuli, mantids, things like that. And other people believe that it's all just, you know, sky trash is the new cool phrase the kids are saying. But we've got some, you know, the budget's going to be coming out soon for this year. So our attention has been on the 2022-2023 NDAA. We're going to start seeing legislation language come through. So I'm really pleased that, maybe pleased isn't the wrong word, but encouraged by the response to these shoot downs. You know, the 16 senators all signing that letter to probably fund Aero. We've had Biden say that there's going to be kind of a all-government interagency task force, which I think would be better suited. And we'll probably see legislation starting to push that way now. Because, yeah, national security was a great angle for this. And that's the language that people that are interested in our defense speak. You know, it makes sense that that's with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, you mentioned the new interagency task force at the National Security Council. And I was really encouraged to see that that's going to be led by Jake Sullivan, because Jake was my White House mentor's boss for a while. And he's been with Joe for over a decade. So he's very trusted. He's a very smart guy. And I think he's going to be a great person to follow the data. And he is not a fool, so he's not going to take any BS. So that was really encouraging to see.
That's awesome. And just to touch on something that I think is important there, you know, we keep hearing people lament that certain groups aren't working together. For me, I think it's important to have these distinct different piles of data so we can cross-reference them and kind of go, oh, look at that. We found the same thing in that data pile as we did in that data pile, and those people didn't work together. This is how peer review works. It's essentially what we're getting if that happens. So we want Arrow to do its own thing. We want the Galileo project to do its own thing, sans classified data, UAPX, and this interagency task force. The more kind of vector we have coming at this, the better.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's talk about you, Dan. That's why we're here. We're here to talk about what you've been up to and stuff like that. And you've been out of the country, out of the UK now for quite some time. And it all started with you flying to New York City for an inquiry into anomalous experiences in the phenomena, the conference put on by our good friends James and Jay. So can you just give us a bit of tell us about what that conference was like for you, who you met, and how you felt it went overall?
Yeah, in New York, they say concrete jungle that dreams are made of. I would say concrete conference that dreams are made of. It's the second one they've done now, and it's fantastic. Jay and who's involved? Remind me. We had Kelly from UFO Rabbit Hole. We had Priscilla as well from the Quantum Witch channel. We had James Iandoli from Engage in the Phenomena, and we had Jay, who heads up the experience group and also co-hosts on Witness Citizen. And they put together both times an amazing lineup of people that kind of ranged from people trying to quantify the woo. Sharon Hallett was kind of, one of the standouts for a lot of people. The wild card, will say. She spoke about synchronicity and coincidence and how one person's kind of magical moment can be completely mundane to someone else, and that could be a system of balance, which I thought was really cool. And then we had right over to Christopher Mellon talking about the NDAA with Leslie Kane, which was super special. As well as meeting her production partners and kind of seeing a few clips from the show that is now airing that people are really enjoying, where we're hearing, that third elusive author of the 2017 article, Helene Cooper, the New York Times Pentagon defense correspondent, and she gets so excited and animated in the series that, it's infectious. And it's been a long time coming that she gets to talk about this too. The people that were in the crowd, we had Jay from Project Unity, I lost count. I'm just my brain's fritzing even trying to think. Mitch Horowitz was incredible to meet. Gary Nolan, Christopher Mellon, Ralph Blumenthal. It was incredible. And then there were also kind of after conference dinners as well that people got to attend and just talk freely at them, because what I love about getting together with people from the community, and I'm sure you guys kind of find the same thing, is we finally get to use the shorthand. If I say to my friends, oh, hey, have you, tried human-initiated contact? They'll kind of go, what is that? And who are you? And where's Dan gone? Whereas with you guys, you just kind of go, oh, yeah, sure. I know what you mean. It's Stephen Greer, it's the Mission Rama stuff. And, we can kind of get a bit more traction in the conversations, as well as, having wine and knocking the glasses over, Katie.
That is a little judgmental. I want to make it very clear I did that before I had any of the wine too.
Yeah, this is true.
It was a rough day for me. No, but it was great. And it was great meeting you there. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about these conferences is getting to connect with people in person. I saw a few comments that were asking about how do we build a more positive environment, and get away from the trolls and the drama and the arguing. And I think what I really appreciated about those events is how positive they were. Because I think at the end of the day, we all care about the same things, and it's easier to humanize people when you can meet face to face and have these conversations. So Vinnie, are you going to make your way out for any conferences this year so we can meet you?
Well, we're all meeting up in Roswell in end of
right.
June, but I do want to go to New York. So maybe towards if they do another one in October, November of 2023, then I might see if I can get out to NYC for that.
I hear such things might be in the works.
I'm not surprised. That would be amazing. So obviously you did that in New York. It was great. I mean, we all kind of saw it from afar on Twitter and on YouTube with the channel, with them dropping the interviews, and it did look amazing. And I'm not surprised. So let's talk about where you left. You left New York. Where did you end up, and what was the plan? And let's get into it.
So the plan was real loose. The plan was just to go traveling because I figured that I could be stressed trying to, live life in the UK or be stressed traveling and seeing these amazing sights. So I didn't, I don't have kids. There was no kind of career outside of this UFO thing that really I had going on. So I was just like, cool, when am I going to be able to do this in life? So off I went, and I picked the first place to start. And I know some people will kind of go, this is crazy. Literally by kind of listening to music and watching movies, and place names just kept coming up. And it was the same place names over and over and over, and it was Mexico. So here I am in Mexico, kind of trying to lean into the synchronicities and those kind of liminal spaces, as well as go in between all these kind of magical ancient sites. And Mexico is packed with them. If you do a Google search for just ancient sites in Mexico, you'll hear about Chichen Itza and you'll hear about Teotihuacan. Once you're here, you hear about, the cities are literally built on top of them. You bump into them while trying to get a Starbucks. It's really hard to avoid. And it's actually kind of amazing that you can just go wandering in the park and see everything from, them kind of doing pedal boat rides on the lakes to literally walking alongside a fountain that is thousands of years old.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I was really excited to see you do was going to Teotihuacan. I know there's lots of other smaller sites, but that site in particular really fascinates me because we still don't know who made it. A lot of people mistakenly think that it was the Aztecs, but the Aztecs actually had been gone for 1,000 years before they came upon Teotihuacan. And at the time, it was the 6th largest city in the world. It's bigger than Rome. It was bigger than Alexandria. And we have no idea where they all went. So I just want to hear about your impressions of this site, what you thought. It's quite a large city with more than just the pyramids. So what did you think?
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I can't get my head around, is that we hear about sites like Göbekli Tepe that they've only uncovered, one circular structure or a couple of circular structures, and they know there's more underground. They just haven't got to them. But I didn't quite realize that was true of these places in Mexico too. Almost every ancient site here, you kind of have the center that you can visit as a tourist, but there's work going on around. They're still uncovering them. And these places are sprawling. They're huge. And like everywhere else in the world, they just kind of decide their tombs and move on. But there's a lot more intrigue there. Like you said, the people that I spoke to said that they were attributed to the Toltecs, but they kind of emphasized that doesn't necessarily mean that it was the Toltec civilization. The word itself means craftsman of the highest level. So they're just saying that, someone really skilled made them. When we think of ancient sites, we tend to think that they kind of had primitive tools and ways of thinking. That's not true. Like our whole idea of the hunter-gatherers and these kind of civilizations has to shift because they were a lot more advanced than we thought. And when I say advanced, I just want to emphasize, I don't mean they had laser pens and, things like that. I'm just saying they were more advanced than, bow and arrows and just hunting. There was organization, there was political structure. And especially when we think of sacrifice, we tend to depict these people as dragging people up to the top of the pyramids to sacrifice them. And that just wasn't the case. Everyone believed that they were doing the right thing by sacrificing people. So it would have been an honor, and that's really hard for us to get our heads around. I think I heard that Teotihuacan at its peak had about 250,000 people, and that's just what we know. It was connected to all sorts of sites all around. We'll get to Monte Alban later on, but that site is kind of split. And there's loads of ruins around, but the more we uncover, the more we realize that actually all of these different ruins are one civilization. It's not multiple different sites. So yeah, it was huge. It's really painful to think of what the Spanish did when they got here, because they were just people living their lives. And it's amazing when you kind of come to a place and you look at the culture that's here instead of trying to put your culture onto it, which has happened so much here. But we'll get to that. You'll be able to see it in photos and things like that. I know, Vinnie, when we were in Colombia, the same was kind of true there. And actually the invaders kind of did a trick on themselves where they were trying to stomp out these local civilizations and get them to convert from their religions to Christianity. But by building churches on their important sites and by pointing them in the right direction, all they did was put a bigger flag in them for us. And now we can kind of go, okay, this is the front and it's pointed north and that's pointed east and west. And oh my God, they seem to have known the cardinal points, you know?
That's a good point. Absolutely. I just want to highlight this comment. Where has it gone here? I was thinking the same, you know, the Swiss Army Uber said it. What about the pyramids that have flat tops that look like UFO landing pads? Now, am I right in saying that is Teotihuacan that has those?
So there are some kind of flattish tops there, but I mean, in terms of UFO landing pads, I'd say, you know, what's a UFO? What does it look like? What does a UFO landing pad look like? You know, if you had a landing pad for, say, you know, a dirigible, it looks very different from a plane landing pad or something else landing pad. So we have to be careful when asserting those things. But Monte Alban, for one, was certainly an artificially leveled mountaintop. And it blows your mind when you see the scale of it, to just think how long this would have taken and how they would have gone about it. Because like I said, these people were ingenious. They were doing things that we don't understand. And there's so much technology throughout history that we've just lost, that we're trying to recover. I think it was the Pentagon, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was an early technique for kind of getting nuclear material. And it was so secretive that they actually lost the technique and they had to spend millions trying to rediscover it. And that's just in the modern era. You know, we look at things like Roman fire that worked on water, basically, was hotter than anything, you know, we can produce. But there it is in antiquity, and the knowledge is lost to time. So you got to wonder what else, what else was here, especially when you consider that we're near, Central America. We've got all these jungles, therefore plants, therefore this is where medicines come from. And I'm not even talking ayahuasca and stuff like that. I'm just talking actual, paracetamol, things like that. The plants here have properties that people have used for, centuries, millennia probably, to treat certain ailments and to do certain things. So as we've kind of cut all those forests down or those jungles down, we're losing a lot of that. And we're also losing a lot of local knowledge as well. I was speaking to one gentleman the other day who, very, very nice guy. I was attracted to a shop through just the colors in the store. And he started talking to me about the history. And he was telling me that the knowledge of the Mayans is only passed down to the firstborn son in the family. And there was a break in his family. And his granddad only had a daughter, which was his mother. And then he was her firstborn. So he couldn't receive the complete knowledge. He only got bits. And he was happy to share those bits with me. And, it was quite extensive, kind of talking about how they kind of saw cosmic energies and that actually we all came from that and we're all one and just encased in different bodies. And it was really beautiful. There's a sense of community there. But he was saying that even he doesn't have all the knowledge because it would break tradition to give it to him. So you've got to wonder just how much has been lost to time.
Wow.
Absolutely. And I really appreciated something you said, Dan, when you were talking about, how ingenious they were and the technology they had. I think it's really important, and I really appreciated this in your answer, that as much as we love UFOs, that we don't automatically assume that anything with ancient cultures has to do with that, because the bottom line is they were a brilliant people within their own right, and we don't need some, paranormal or extraterrestrial explanation to explain their achievements. And so I really valued that in your answer. And one of the things that they told me when I was at Teotihuacan was that the flat tops had to do with temples that used to be at the top. And so wouldn't it be great if we still had access to those and whatnot? But I'm really curious, what was your favorite site so far that you were able to make it to? I know that's a hard
really
one.
Good question. I actually think, and it might be kind of, eye-rolly to pick Teotihuacan, but the fact that I got to go there Christmas morning, I'd been trying to go for like 3 weeks and it just wasn't happening. And then it just so happened that I was there on Christmas morning. So the crowds were less. There are several gates that you can enter. So this is a bit of a tip for people if they get to go to Teotihuacan. I saw that Brian Foster is taking a group at the moment. There are multiple entrances around the site. And everyone goes to gate A. If you just say, take me to Teotihuacan in a taxi, which, by the way, is really cheap. It's about 25 quid to get back and forth, really cheap. And it's about an hour each way as well. Can you imagine that in a taxi in the UK, Vinnie? That would be hundreds.
Yeah.
But so gate 1 is like right at the front. That's where all the tourists gather. Whereas that's the complete opposite end of the Avenue of the Dead to the Temple of the Sun and the Temple of the Moon, which is, the big ones that people want to go see. So I recommend go to gate 2. It looks like you're in the middle of nowhere. You'll get kind of accosted by some really cute stray dogs and stuff like that. But as soon as you go in, you're right at those pyramids. So it takes about, I would say, 40 minutes to walk up from gate 1, whereas gate 2, you're right there. So I full on had just an hour to myself amongst these huge ancient pyramids. And the more ancient sites I see, the more I realize that actually I was really lucky. These places get filled with vendors and tourists very, very quickly, and it can kind of dampen the magic, we'll say.
Amazing. And I mentioned when we spoke before you came on that you may have some images or photographs that you can share with us. At any point you want to do that, go ahead.
Sure.
But for now,
shall we? I was just going to say, basically, I put together a little album of the kind of journey that I've been on, so we can kind of discuss them one by one if you want. And hello, Sean Cahill. Beautiful.
Good
people.
to see
He's
you.
a beautiful person.
Good to see you, Sean.
Another San Diego.
I'll bring this up and we can see
Graham Hancock's series that he released towards the end of last year. So if you can talk about that, because I didn't know much about that one, and that'd be great. Tell me when you want me to bring it in, and we'll start looking at some pictures.
Go for it. Should be ready.
Right, here we go.
So I'm going to start with Frida here. Frida, and I've only learned about Frida about a month after I saw this picture. The earthquakes in Turkey, were tragic, but there has been aid sent from all over the world. And Frida, in this picture, is one of the dogs that was sent that went looking for people and find survivors. And she actually retired. And when she retired, they painted this big mural of her. And I saw and loved the mural. And then weeks later, I actually found out what the mural represented. So I just wanted to big up Frida and say, thank you, Frida, for finding all those survivors and making the world a better place. Wow. And I'm sure that, a bunch of people in the comments would be like, is there an orb above her head? Maybe. I don't know. You'd have to ask Frida. Can't speak dog.
Yet. Can't speak dog yet. With the amount of photos you send me of dogs in Mexico, I'm thinking it's going to be soon.
I'd be very pleased if that could happen. Hold on, can I make this? Yeah. Can you guys still see that?
Oh, it's just gone off. There it is now. There it is.
There? Cool. I'll just stay there. Okay. So this is Templo Mayor. And Katie, correct my pronunciation on any of this because I know you're more experienced in Spanish.
Templo Mayor.
There you go. Templo Mayor. My most accomplished phrase in Spanish, by the way, is no tengo miedo a las fantasmas, which means I ain't afraid of no ghosts, but it's not really useful anyway.
It might come up. You never know.
Maybe. It seems to be a funny way of saying I don't speak Spanish so far. So, yeah, this is Templo Mayor, and this is smack bang in the center of Mexico City. And what's amazing is not a lot of this actually remains. But I'm just beneath street level here in the main square where they celebrated New Year's. And it's a huge area. But this is a really good example of, like, literally above me, there are just clothes shops, shoe shops, a normal city. But then you go underneath and you see these kind of structures. So this is a little model of it. And this is kind of how it looks. Oh. So the scaffold in there is in the background. That's on the kind of cathedral in the main square that the Spanish built. And then this whole structure here is yonks and yonks old. We're talking about 1325. It was rebuilt 6 times and expanded each time. And it was destroyed by the Spanish in 1521. And they replaced it with that cathedral that is just in the background there that they're struggling to keep up, evidently. Whereas this thing has survived the test of time.
I was about to say the ancient structure is still there and doing just fine, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the next bit, so I wanted to emphasize this. I'm not sure if you guys can hear sound. I assume that you couldn't. But this picture here is a pretty famous picture of Mary Magdalene. And when I was here, I got to experience the festival of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And basically, this was an event that happened on December 9th and December 12th in 1531, where a gentleman named Juan Diego was visited by Mary. basically, an apparition, a Marian apparition. We speak about those with Our Lady of Fatima, and we think of that as a kind of UFO event because there were said to be some dancing spheres in the sky that weren't the sun.
Right.
So I walked into, this celebration with kind of that lens on, and it amazed me. People came from all over the country carrying shrines like that picture you just saw to express their faith. One family even took turns crawling from their village, and it took them 21 days. 21 days. Can you imagine walking day and night for that long? I was knackered after walking 2 hours up to the shrine. So you can see here, I'm just going to press play here, and you can kind of see the size of the crowd inside the cathedral. And these services just went on and on and on, one after the other, and people just got to join. And it was really, really incredible to just be there and be a part of it. This was right at the top of the hill. And you can kind of see this is the original cathedral here. And you'll be able to see the view from it as well.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful.
You can see all the people coming up too.
Man, I miss some stuff in Mexico. I need to go back.
I'm trying to, I don't think I can move the...
Someone
Can you
says
see
that you need
just
to...
next to the playhead there, someone's on the floor?
Oh, yeah.
Just here. So people were collapsing because it was so hot, and they had to walk up this hill at the end, and it was crazy. And the cathedral that I just showed you that we were inside, can you see my mouse pointer actually?
Yeah.
Let's check if you can. Cool. So that was inside this cathedral here. And then we kind of had to walk up the hill to get to the shrine. And people were coming up to the shrine to see, where are we? To see this basically, which is, if I pause it, just here at the end, this is the original picture that's right at the top. So people would come up to kind of pay their respects. And, I'm not religious, but I took a moment to kneel and, be respectful. This is something that a lot of people have faith in. And if you've heard the idea of, a tulpa or anything like that, then you know how kind of leaning into the positivity of ideas can help manifest them in the world. So I wanted to kind of play a part in that. But it was people from all ages, children. It wasn't just tourists as well. Just such a range. You can see a child there as well. And there wasn't a screaming kid in here at all. It was really, for how busy it was a really relaxed, atmosphere. So very surprisingly.
Incredible.
Is this one going to work?
Oh, do you want to show us some dogs?
I do. Yeah. This was a cheeky little dude on the way up to that shrine. There were a bunch of kind of sacred temples that you could throw coins in and make a wish or, a prayer. And this dog was just chugging from said sacred temple. So I just thought it was cute.
Chilling.
Very, he didn't fall in either. Very, very sweet.
Wow.
And then, so this was the view from the top. And I mean, this light is incredible, right?
Yeah.
If I was so inclined, this would be a completely religious experience. Had I crawled 21 days to get here, this site would have made the whole trip worth it, I think. Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, no disrespect to people who have that much faith, but I think after 21 days, I would just want to collapse and sleep.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? Especially in the heat and humidity here. I don't think I've had a single day of less than about 70% humidity. So, you just sweat. Right. So every hour it's just chug a bottle of water, chug a Powerade, and keep going. I imagine it's really exhausting. So this right here is the Temple of the Sun. This is the big temple in Teotihuacan, which is about 25 miles northwest of Mexico City. Northeast, sorry. And this is the view from Gate 2. So you can see it, whereas it would be a speck in the distance from Gate 1. You can, if you want to, pay money to get a balloon flight over before the sunrise happens. And to be honest, as cool as that sounded, I was happy to walk in, and I kind of wish people would stop, taking modern technology over these and ruining my pictures.
Dan, I hate this pyramid. This pyramid broke 3 ligaments in my ankle.
Whoa.
Well, you were allowed to walk up it, weren't you? So it's blocked off now.
I did. Yeah. I walked all the way to the top and I did a
Wow.
cartwheel on the top of the pyramid. It was pretty fun.
And I just want to emphasize to people, you know, it's really far away here, so you're kind of losing the size, but it was
Huge.
massive. I can't imagine how long it took you to get up there, and it was so steep as well. I remember thinking these aren't steps that are used every single day, because it's just there's so much effort to get up them. And
no, and they're not
imagine
and they're not
small
OSHA
people would have
compliant
to
either.
climb, right? No, they're not. No.
That's
so
incredible.
he is a kind of scale here. So you can kind of see the Temple of the Moon is to my left. These are temples we were allowed to go up, by the way. Some of them are blocked off, some of them aren't. But since COVID happened, they seem to be, you know, just looking after their sites a bit more, which I find really encouraging. No vendors are allowed up here. You can see that there's just no people, maybe some down here starting to trickle up. But this is why I recommend you go early and you get from that gate too, just because, you know, you get to sit and just take in this magical place with no kind of, you know, chattering around you and things like that. So Katie, I guess when you were at the top, you would have been a tiny little speck up there. You probably wouldn't have been
Tiny. Yeah, I couldn't have even seen me. Mm-mm.
Absolutely insane. So here's a closer photo of it. It would have been cool to go up, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it certainly would have been a lot of work.
What's the
Lots of
altitude?
break.
Does Mexico sit above sea level naturally anyway?
It
Mexico
does.
City's high.
Okay.
Yeah. The actual area of the whole place is about, I think it's about 83 square kilometers. I'm not sure exactly how high it is, but if you give me a second, I can totally find out with the wonders of the modern internet.
What did we do before that? You just want to know, what's the elevation of Mexico City?
I know, we kind of need a chat GPT would just bring it up for us, right?
If anyone in the comments knows, now's your chance.
Yeah, you can shine here instead of Wikipedia.
Just a reminder, everyone, if you do have any questions, please pop them in capital letters and we will try our best to ask them.
Oh, Swiss Army Uber asked if that's the world's biggest pyramid.
It is not, but you are going to see the world's biggest pyramid in a second that is actually bigger by volume than those in Egypt as well. And I'll tell you exactly why. So go on.
I was just going to say the Pyramid of the Sun is actually the third biggest in the world.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
So this rises above about 66 meters, which is 216 feet, depending on where you are. And its base is 220 by 230 meters. So it's rather big.
That's cool. We got Warlock here says 7,300. So I assume that is meters above sea level. Yeah, it will be, won't it?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Thank you so much.
So this here is when you go into the museum on site, they have these little models that kind of show you the layout of how it would have been. So I thought I'd include this just to show people what you're seeing here isn't what you've seen so far. This is a little temple that's dedicated to, they think, Quetzalcoatl, which I might be saying wrong.
That's pretty close.
But if I play it, you kind of see the size. So this is the Avenue of the Dead, where the tourists have to walk. Gate 2 is about by here, so I get to walk straight across there.
That's crazy.
But you can see the size, right? And how many people this would have housed. I think it was about, I want to say about 250,000 at its peak. But, you know, we keep discovering more, so it could be bigger. This is just kind of the political center of the city, they think, you know, where the organization was done and where the worship happened and where the sacrifice happened and things like that. The really cool thing is, in fact, I'm just going to go back here. So in this square here, these were designed to kind of carry sound. So in many documentaries, you'll kind of see people clapping in these open squares just to hear how the sound reverberates. But there was a little platform in the middle here that honestly, you could speak at almost normal volume and it would carry to the whole square. So these areas were just used for those purposes. You know, you'd have people sat here from different groups of neighboring kind of cities and tribes, and this would be a big political debate. Kind of think like the Houses of Parliament, but, you know, with sacrifice, which I think the House of Parliament might be improved by, to be honest.
Also, a great place for stand-up comedy.
Yes.
Or maybe a talk about UAP. So lots of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should say as well that there are a whole bunch of kind of Mayan stories and things like that going back, where supposedly at the final battle between some of the conquistadors and the Mayans for the seat of power in the region, supposedly balls of light came out of the water and hovered over the battlefield and then shot off. There's not really much more said than that, but it's just very matter of fact. So yeah, that was a very like, whoa, that was a UFO. If that happened now, we're talking Roman shields basically, but in a different culture's lens.
Nice.
So this picture I included because, I mean, it was huge, and this is kind of one of the symbols that pop up as the feathered serpent or the cosmic serpent, which kind of plays back into what the guy told me here about how we come from the cosmos and are all parts of a whole. And the feathers around the serpent here, I actually have a serpent tattoo, and I've included a few pictures in this, but you'll see how I've kind of incorporated these things as I find them to try and kind of carry them with me, because I love the story, and I love people asking, and I get to kind of tell them about the people who made these symbols and open their minds a little bit. So this is the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, and you can see these heads here and the scale of it. It is enormous, and the intricacy is, I can zoom.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
It's handy. So you can see how intricate it is, right? This kind of stuff, you can do it by hand, maybe not with copper chisels because they're soft, but it's perfectly achievable by someone with patience and skill. In the same way as a watchmaker is incredible to us these days. I couldn't even fathom making a watch, but these people were just incredibly good at working this stone, basically.
Well, and what's really amazing too about all of these sites in particular is that they didn't look like this at their height. They were covered in limestone and cut and painted in all these colorful motifs. So we're so awestruck by them today. Imagine seeing them when they were in an operation. I'm sure it was just a marvel.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add as well, the same is true of, or we found the same is true of, we think of like Roman marble statues and things like that. We thought of those as plain, but we've since found that actually they were colored and they would have looked totally different. It's a paradigm shift equivalent to realizing the dinosaurs had feathers,
Yeah. I think people still can't get their heads around that.
But I was pleased to see when I visited an exhibition in the center of the crater for the meteor that wiped them out, that they've updated that to include the feathers, which was kind of cool. And they managed to still make them look menacing too.
Scary birds.
Scary birds, scary big birds. So this is Cholula. So I'm actually standing up on one of the levels of the pyramid of Cholula now, which is the one that's the pyramid that is the world's biggest by volume. Cholula means place of refuge, so they think that it was kind of a place in the region that when a lot of other kind of civilizations collapsed around them, everyone came here to kind of, build together. They think about 100,000 people lived here, but again, that's being expanded as they find more sites. And they think that maybe the movement was caused by this guy right here.
Whoa.
Not to zoom in on my face, I did nothing. But this, and I'm going to try and say the name, Popocatépetl, I think it is. But this is a huge volcano that's still active today. And while I was there was actually an article in the Daily Mail where a couple had filmed a video of what they thought was a UFO over the volcano. And it's kind of what you call a hotspot. And I didn't realize that until getting here. It is about, I want to say, 5,500 meters high. So it's fairly big, and hopefully it's the next picture here. Oh, no. So basically while I was there, I saw kind of a black speck going through the sky. I think it was a balloon, but I'll show the video anyway, and folk can kind of, see. But there were a lot of balloons in the town, a lot of celebrations happening. So when people say they see things in the sky around there, I would probably lean towards prosaic. But we do know that there are connections between UAP and volcanoes and volcanic lava tubes and things like that, or just lava tubes.
And Dan, for people who are unfamiliar with Cholula, can you explain what you're looking at here? Because it kind of looks like a hill, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the bottom structure here, we've kind of got the original natural structure, or not natural, but the original pyramid structure. And then right on top is a church that the Spanish built to kind of, usurp the power in the region. This pyramid, as you look at it on the ground, is a lot of it is still underground. They've kind of found the edges and extrapolated, but it was built up in multiple stages. I think it was four or so stages since the 3rd century. And stands, I think it's about 25 meters above the plain, which is shorter than the Pyramid of Giza, but the bottom is actually much wider. It's 300 by 315 meters. Whereas the Great Pyramid in Egypt is 230 by 230. So that one's nice and square and tall. This one's a little bit stubby, but it's much wider. So that was incredible to see. One of my favorite things about going to this place is when I got to the church at the top, they gave me a bag of holy water, which I just carried around for a little while. Like, what do I do with this? Like, I just now have a bag of holy water.
Give it to a dog to drink, apparently.
Yeah.
Right?
Bless that dog. Bless that dog.
So this is kind of where like the churches and the hill is quite far behind this sign, but these signs they have them all over Mexico, and yeah, they're little tourist kind of spots where you can kind of see the colors, and I love going to see them because all the patterns on the signs are reflective of local art as opposed to Mexico in general, so they change a lot depending on where you go, so you can kind of get a good feel for the art style when you're there. So this is one of the intact parts of the pyramid, and you can climb up this and you'll see the view from the top in a second. The church is much higher above it, but this is kind of how it all would have looked from the bottom. Levels just keep going up all the way to that church at the top.
Wow.
So this here is the video of the thing. So I'll just find it here for you. There you go.
Yeah.
So to my eyes, this looked like a tumbling balloon. I've seen people disagree, but I feel like my eyes operated better than the camera here. Yeah, but it could be high and big, or it's hard to kind of pin down. But it's a good example, I think, of why people see these things and kind of go, I really don't know what that is.
Yeah.
There are no observables there, I would say.
No.
But it does kind of dip in a second and disappear.
Interesting. Yeah, I just went through the cloud cover, it looks like.
Yeah. So it just kind of disappears down by here.
Pretty cool either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, not bad, right?
Just happened to catch that? Did you see it and then start filming, or was it just kind of an artifact of already filming around? So
I was filming around and then I saw it. So there's a little bit at the beginning of this video where I'm just like, you can kind of see it drifting in here. But yeah, I was filming the volcano and I saw it. So I zoomed in and just tracked it. So I thought that's quite cool.
Could you feel the wind on you? Could you check to see if that was just, you could.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty windy,
aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm looking upwards towards the volcano, so this thing could be higher. So it's probably going to be quite windy. But, I mean, depending on how in front of the volcano it is, you can kind of see the direction the wind's blowing the smoke here. And
the opposite direction.
Yeah, right? So you could argue, depending on where it is between me and the volcano, it depends on the wind direction there. So yeah, it's intriguing. It was fun to capture that.
If it's a bird, it's a fast bird. So
yes,
interesting there
definitely. Too. This was kind of a special moment for me, so I wanted to share it. I had one of those, apps on my phone, and I could see basically as the sun was going down, all of the planets were aligned right above me. So you can kind of see Uranus there.
Wow. Gemini in the bush. Incredible.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Wow.
So they would just be behind the church. But yeah, that was
something
amazing.
you were aware of, or did you just suddenly see it?
Well, I heard that week that there was kind of like a conjunction and things like that happening, but I didn't think that I would be able to witness it just straight up like this. Just because I had this massive swath of open sky, it just made it real easy to see. And what's crazy to me is no one was looking up as well. I think I was the only one kind of, in awe of the universe at this point. Everyone else was kind of, they were looking at the nice views of the city, but just to say, not many people look up. The more people look up, the more they kind of tend to see weird things in the sky. So look up more, people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, Dan, what's the name of that app you're using? I'm curious, and so are some watchers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few kind of star apps, but this one is called Sky Guide. Really nice and easy. Graphics are nice, good interface and things like that. And what's great is you can kind of go back and forth. So say you saw something 2 nights ago, you can go back 2 nights ago and check what was there.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, I had a moment a couple of weeks ago where I thought I saw a UFO and it was definitely a planet. So that would be really useful to have.
Well, they get tricky sometimes, right? Because you get like a little kind of flickering because of the atmosphere, and sometimes they're brighter than you think. And, there definitely have been times where I've had to check as well, because I'm just like, wow, that's super bright if it's a planet.
Right.
But yeah, it's worth just checking because you can go back. This I thought was a cool image just because the volcano is kind of spitting out smoke and just touching up here Venus.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite cool to see as a bit of a space nerd. Thinking about all the processes allowed this to happen, that then allowed this to happen, and then to account the processes to.
Oh, we're losing you. Come on, Mexico. He's back. He's back. We lost you for a second.
Good.
Oh, am I back? Cool.
Yes, it's all good. I just want to ask this question here from Jalen. It's a really good question. It says, are there any examples of precision engineering unexpected during that period of time, and any astronomical alignments?
So astronomical alignments, in terms of like mimicking the stars, like we talk about Egypt, which I'm just going to touch on this. All those 3 pyramids were built really far apart. So no one person sat down and said, yeah, we're going to make these reflect Orion. What might have happened is the person that made the final pyramid said, oh, if I put that here, it kind of reflects the heavens, and that kind of works with the as above, so below stuff. But no one, planned for the pyramids to match Orion. It just would have been later on. But absolutely, these people definitely appreciated astronomy, which you'll see in a second when we get to Monte Alban. And they definitely kind of orientated things to the cardinal points of the compass, being northeast, southwest. There are a couple of platforms. I think I put the video in here where I was able to demonstrate that as well.
Nice.
So this I wanted to include because in Puebla, which was not far from Cholula, where we just were, there was a cool planetarium, which is this guy. And it's this big pyramid. So it looks really cool, right? You can kind of see Orion in the sky above it. But yeah, you go in and they kind of show you this show and things like that. Really cool experience if you ever get to visit. But part of it, they were talking about the kind of bubbles of all the galaxies in the universe. So what you're looking at on screen now, each bubble you see is the electromagnetic reach of stars and planets in different parts of the universe. And I couldn't help but feel, and you guys might agree with me, these kind of just look like cells, right?
Yeah.
So once again, when we go on to these bigger scales, we're kind of seeing this fractal repetition. And I wouldn't like to say what it means. Some people think we might be inside a bigger organism or something like that we'll never be able to actually appreciate. But I thought it was really cool kind of image to demonstrate that fractal nature of the universe again.
As above, so as below, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You got it.
Yeah, that's stunning.
So this little guy here, this is called an alebrije. And if you've seen Coco, the Pixar movie, or Book of Life as well, these animals are present. And the whole idea is that someone will take a plant medicine and they will see a pattern. They'll be shown a pattern that they have to bring back and share with the world. And then they come back and they do that as best they can. This is just a painting, obviously, but a lot of people make actual models. I'm not sure if I've got a model here, but basically the models are made out of animal bones that are gathered from the jungles and areas around here. So it's a real sacred process. So these patterns that you're kind of looking at here, what they call cosmic patterns, they're given to us by, the spirits, so to speak.
Wow.
This was another cool dog here that I have no idea how he got up there. But
Amazing.
So this is the serpent tattoo that you'll kind of see develop. So it started in Wales looking like this. The idea was to kind of fill it as I went around. So you can see that I kind of had the feather plume from Teotihuacan, the patterns from the Amagui here. And it'll kind of grow as we go. So this brings us to Monte Alban, which was incredible and a very memorable part of my journey, because I got stuck here after dark and had to walk over an hour back to civilization. Luckily, I was safe, but yeah. And there's a very specific reason I got stuck here after dark that's to do with this here. So this is a picture of kind of the overall site.
Wow.
That is at the top of here. And you can really see in this model here that they have how it's leveled so that they can use it. And that's just incredible. I can't imagine. We can kind of level things, but thinking of what they had available to them back then, just the amount of effort that it took to make this would have just been insane. But it provides a really good vantage point to kind of see the valleys around, and a really good defensive vantage point as well.
Right.
So there's this idiot, just at this huge site. This right behind me here, this was an astronomy related building. So this was nothing to do with kind of, aligning with the stars and stuff, but this is absolutely where the people would go who studied astronomy in this area. And remember what I said as well, that this is one of the sites kind of in the hills over here. There'd be more and more over here, but there's smaller connections of places, but they all would have been part of the same civilization. And you can really see the size of it comparing the size of this dude here compared to, these people right over here.
Dan, where in Mexico is this in relationship to like Mexico City is in the south?
So it is in the south. I want to say it's kind of southwestish, but definitely the south. Getting towards that kind of the heel as it comes round.
Okay.
Near to Oaxaca. So this is it going to play? Yes, it'll play. So you're going to be able to see me speaking. I'll tell you what I'm saying. But the reason I took this video is because we have two structures here. This structure here, this was one temple. And then we have this structure here. And you can kind of see that this one's flatter. And I'll show you the why of it now. So there are, guess how many years there are between these two structures?
300.
300? You're not too far off. You've kind of ruined my point by guessing. It's fine.
301. No,
there's 400 years between these two structures. And the reason that I took this video is because I think it really demonstrates what the passage of time does to a place. This isn't just, a geological process. Other things might affect it in, human things here, kind of, temple might have been torn down or something like that. But in only 400 years, we've gone from a full building to, nothing, right? Like if you saw that, unless you were an archaeologist that knew that, what might be under there once you'd found this building, you just pass over it. You think it was just ground. And yet we have people asserting that, we know that humanity goes back. We thought it was about, 10,000 years. That's expanded recently to, we think it's 150, 200,000 years now. But it just keeps getting older. And when people say, oh, but why wouldn't we find anything that they had? This is why. This is 400 years difference here. Imagine what this would look like if it was 5,000 years or 10,000 years or 100,000 years. We would have nothing. Everything returns to dust, to ground, to its constituent elements. And it's amazing to kind of think about that and to really realize, this whole site could be built on another site. And as I've been saying, as we've been going through them, all of these sites are built upon. They're expanded as the peoples grow. And like Teotihuacan, it could be that the structures were found from an earlier peoples that we just don't know anything about. So history is amazing, and it really is a mystery. You know, the mainstream kind of story that we know everything about our past is codswallop. It's informed guessing.
Right.
So this is the reason that I got stuck here for a few hours. This is a alignment tool for tracking the sun and the stars. And I wanted to stay here so that I could use it to kind of track the stars in the way that they did. And there was something kind of magical about being in this site on my own after dark, using it in the way they would have used it, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago. We're talking about 500 BC, by the way.
Wow.
And here I am with my modern technology, you know, kind of overlaying the star patterns and things like that. For all intents and purposes, what I was doing to these peoples would be completely magic, right?
Is this a Mayan site or Olmec, or do they know who made this?
So they think Zapotec, but they're
Zapotec.
not entirely sure who started it. It was abandoned around 500 to 750 AD and replaced by kind of lots of smaller places around. So Cholula, for example, would have taken some of the power from this place. You know, some of the peoples and the important peoples would have gone there, and to some of the other places as well. But they think in this site alone, just Monte Alban, there were about 5,000 people, you know, that would be here all the time.
Wow.
This pillar here. So I couldn't quite get a good picture of it, to be honest. But on the face of it, and it's kind of around the middle, people have probably heard of Graham Hancock and his, you know, his handbags that are depicted on lots of ancient sites over the world. Yeah. People carrying handbags to them. This pillar had some of those bags on it. So yet again, this is kind of and for me, this was one of the first times I'd seen those handbags. People guess what was in them. You know, some people think it was seeds. Some people think they represent knowledge. Other people think it was, you know, advanced technology. And truth is, it could be anything. But all it seems to denote is that people brought something to the area that they didn't have before.
Wow, look at that.
I could spend hours there. I see why you got lost or left there.
Really easy.
And what's amazing to me about this, Dan, is that I had never heard of Monte Alban. You know what I mean? And we hear about Chichen Itza. Few people even hear about Teotihuacan. And then here you have this massive megalithic site. You know, is this just, are these just littered everywhere? I mean, it seems like every week you're sending me new photos of a site like this.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, I didn't realize it was here until, you know, I wanted to go to Oaxaca for people say to come to taste the food, because a lot of the great Mexican foods like mole originate here. But once I was there, you know, and you look on a map and you're just like, okay, what's around? And Oaxaca is one of these places that it's near a lot of things. So I don't have it with me, but I have this map that kind of just shows you just how much is near. And on that map, I found this, and you know, I wouldn't have known it existed unless I just found that map. So yeah, you're absolutely right. These places are just scattered around so much, and it's amazing to. I mean, in the UK, we have a lot of ancient sites, like, you know, think of Stonehenge and some of the castles and things like that, but we don't treat them the same as they are here. Here, they're kind of just interspersed throughout our civilization, throughout the civilization. Right down here, you've got cities, you know, all around it, and it's just a very normal part of life. I love how they kind of embrace the heritage and celebrate it. So this site is actually orientated. So right now we're looking south from the north. You kind of have another square again, where that sound kind of phenomena happens, where it carries really well. And I like to take a moment at each site that I go to just really, you know, take in the energy there and just have a bit of quiet time. Because a lot of the sites they're so busy that you just don't get a chance. And yeah, this is really where the magic shines. So you can see the sunset in here. So this would be to the west. And this square here, so you can see that it's orientated north, south, west, east. Everything's built to kind of fall along those lines, which is just amazing when you think about it, you know?
Absolutely. Just this question here from Yorna. He says, Dan, what a wonderful trip. I wonder, how does the energy feel when you visit these places? Are there differences? And if so, could you explain them? Enjoy your trip.
Thank you, Yone, and hello. And yeah, absolutely. The energy in these places is just, it just feels powerful. You know, whether you're aware of the history or not, there just seems to be a kind of, what's the best word to use? Just a sense of flow there is the way I would describe it. It's almost like these places were built in areas that had that feeling, as opposed to the other way around. They didn't create the feeling. These places, to me, seemed like, you know, someone got here and was just like, yeah, this feels right. You know, we're going to build it here. The energy each site kind of feels different when you're up some of these pyramids, especially the ones where sacrifices happen. You, at least for me, I can't help but kind of feel the same kind of pang in my stomach that I felt when I was walking around, say, Ground Zero at 9/11 in New York. There's a real weight to what happened here. So whether, you know, that feeds into kind of some of the more woo stuff, I don't know, but I would just recommend that people go and just really take the time to sit and listen to the energy of the area. I can't explain it anymore. It's really hard. That's why it's kind of nice actually to kind of stay after dark and things like that, because the wind kind of whistles through these structures in ways that you don't get to hear when people are talking and, you know, doing their tour kind of spiel. It's really amazing to think of how these sites would have been connected to nature and the people there as well. So this is that stone tool I showed you earlier. And I've basically lined it up here with, this was Jupiter. And I'm not sure if you can see it.
Venus.
You can. So there's Venus right there. So this would have been used to do exactly what I'm doing here, line them up, see how it changes each night, depending, you know, away from here as it kind of moved. And then you track it over a year, and then you'd have a pretty good idea of what the planets are doing in orbit and things like that. So it's amazing to think what you can just do with a stick in the ground, basically, right? You can derive a lot about the universe from it. So again, I kind of, you know, we're just taking the time to take some pictures to see all the stars are orientated. We've got Orion here. And this kind of little long line on Orion is said to be his sword, but, you know, there's some more sordid interpretations of that. And then this is Taurus up here as well.
Wow.
This is another astronomical alignment tool. And it's just amazing to see them all over the site, because I've always said that if only we would reduce the light in the cities where people could look up and be in awe every night and feel as small as we are in the universe, we might have a bit more respect for, you know, the planet that we live on and the power of nature. But unfortunately, we don't get to see things like this unless we go out of our way to see them. And it's really quite incredible to see. You can even make out, you know, some little spiral galaxies in some of these as well.
Wow.
Stunning. So beautiful.
This isn't even the best one I've taken as well. You'll see in a second. So this was on my walk back. So this is just off the edge, you know, on the road kind of leading back down the mountain. It was a 3-kilometer walk back, and my hotel was just on the other side of here. So I had to kind of walk down and walk back, but it was absolutely worth it. And it was just stunning.
I'm gonna kill you. I'm sorry. I'm gonna mama bear a little bit right now. That was not safe.
Well, I know that now, having experienced some of that, but I got lucky this time. What can I say? It was fine. Yeah, it was beautiful. And over here is kind of the main part of Oaxaca as well. So that's what they call Centro. They have them in a lot of places. And it's just where, you know, all the tourists go, and kind of the safe area, we'll say. And yeah, as Katie pointed out, I'm far outside the safe area doing really dumb things. So just safety in numbers, you know, if you're going to do this, be with people.
Or maybe get a cab.
There were no cabs. I stayed too late. This was the problem. I got a bus up there and all the cabs were gone. So I managed to kind of get down to about here, and then I got a cab from here. So yeah, but not before being chased by a gang of dogs, which was a first for me. They're lucky they were cute. So this is just the sky. So this was, you know, when I got stuck, I was a bit bummed out, but I was like, you know what, let's just make the best of it and enjoy the sky. And it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So this brings me to Puerto Escondido, which I was in a post office in Oaxaca. I had plans to go a complete different direction, and the gentleman that was helping me send something back home told me, hey, there's whales off the coast. Not the country, but the animals. And so I just dropped everything and I went. And what you're seeing in this picture is bioluminescence in a lagoon. And it's really hard to capture, but you kind of swoosh a little bit and it all lights up. And it made me feel bad to realize that this is a defense mechanism of the organism. So when you swoosh, it kind of gets frightened and glows. But yeah, unfortunately, it looks really pretty. So a lot of people were provoking it, but it was really hard to capture as well. You can kind of see, I'm waving my hand about in the water here. So you can kind of see what it looks like.
That's wild. Wow.
It was really amazing. Kind of reminded me of a Chi from Dragon Ball Z. A lot of people were yelling like they are and doing the move. It was really quite cool. And then I just wanted to show a little bit of the whales as well. So you'll see them here. I think this might be, oh yeah, here we go. So just look here.
Oh yeah. What type of whales were they?
So we had a whole bunch of different whales, from killer whales to kind of smaller ones. And yeah, they were just migrating up the coast basically. And they were huge. And some people might remember I interviewed Dr. Michelle Fournet last year, about whale language and how they were translating it. So it was humbling to be able to look at whales in the context of not just, the big fish in the sea, but kind of thinking, this is one of the planet's oldest civilizations. They kind of have kids, they mourn for their kids if they die. They have pods that they stick with, friends, family. And it's quite something to think of the whales singing through the darkness in song and not really knowing where they belong until someone sings back. And yeah, I thought that was really profound to consider whilst watching them be all majestic in this medium that they call, they probably don't even realize it's water like us to air, right? It's just what they live in.
Wow.
So here is, just on the same trip, a whole bunch of dolphins just living life. We think of ourselves as intelligent, but quite frankly, these guys have no taxes to pay. This is what they do all day. So they just get to enjoy it. Who's intelligent, I would say.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And this was incredible because we got to go in and swim and just see them in the natural habitat. And I got to swim with dolphins when I was younger, visited in Florida, but it was kind of in an enclosure. And this was wholly different, When you were in the water, you could hear them talking to each other. And Elena Loftus actually recently blew my mind by explaining to me the dolphins don't just communicate through sound. They also make bubbles. And depending on the shape of those bubbles and what those bubbles do when they kind of touch you, that's a form of communication for them.
Wow.
Which is just amazing, right? Like, think about extraterrestrials and how we would communicate with them. We just think, oh yeah, it's telepathy. But they would need to know English. They would, you could kind of understand why images are put into our heads instead of words, right? And it's fascinating to think of how they would even conceive of communicating with us. Gary Nolan loves to point out, how would we communicate with ants? We'd have to do it with pheromones. And then we're limited by the language that they know and by their memory as well, because they can't remember a whole sentence structure. They can maybe get 2 words and then their brains wipe and they go back to their, their kind of hive mentality. It's really fascinating to think about.
Stunning. Wow.
It's taking a second to load. I think this is just a little dude doing a flip again. So like right near the boat. Honestly, man, this place was just, when I was on the way here, I met a really kind lady called Liz on the bus who had, a property here that I ended up staying at. And she was saying that when people come to Puerto Escondido, they just don't want to leave. And I would absolutely say that's true.
Yeah,
this is kind of a quiet gem of Mexico. And there are a couple of beaches kind of along the coast by it as well that are very kind of hippie. For example, there's a place just near here called Mazunte that in fact you're not allowed to like make an Airbnb or a hotel or anything So to stay there, you would literally have to know a local who was willing to give you space in their house.
Oh, that's
so
great.
It's really cool
Nice.
to see how they're maintaining that, you know, that really small feel of the place.
Right.
And tortoise too.
Turtle, not a tortoise.
Turtle.
Tortoise are land animals.
Teenage
I know, because I have a giant
tortoise.
African tortoise in my lawn. It's like this big.
Wow.
Yeah, these were huge and they were amazing because this was just in the middle of the ocean and this dude's just swimming along and coming up for air every now and then. And it feels like a stressful existence, but he was very chilled. So this was the Milky Way above Puerto Escondido. So this was, I would say, my favorite place where I've been able to see the sky. And you can really see, especially in Orion up here. Orion's almost lost in all of the other stars that you can see. That's how many there were. But this right here, this middle one, is Xibalba. And Xibalba is where the Mayans believed their souls would go to be reborn, and then they would come back down to Earth. So whilst, you know, there was no kind of mirroring of the heavens, there's certainly an affinity for it, and it's part of their story. You know, very often this Milky Way here is called like a serpent or the cosmic snake. And again, you can kind of see the attachments to the things I've been saying already. You know, it's really important to them to be able to look up at this and to relate to the universe and as above, so below, you know.
Yeah.
Like, look at that. Just mind-blowing.
You better frame
Pretty
that.
much. Pretty much every single night here I was out just kind of watching, and there were loads of bars and stuff along the beach, and not a single night did I go and enjoy it. It was just me and the universe. Yeah, it was a highlight of the trip. This is kind of me just playing with editing, trying to bring the colors out. So you can see the galactic core here. I'm a bit too aggressive with it, but yeah, you can see that the core is coming out really nicely, and you can see the colors.
It's unbelievable.
And you can also see like the difference. Like this is a good example of the kind of thing that NASA gives. We kind of go, oh yeah, that's how the Milky Way looks. But actually, this is closer how it looks to the eye. And then this is what it looks like once you start bringing things out through editing. So don't worry if your pictures don't look like this. It's not, you know. This is a little bit I got added as well in Puerto Escondido. And this, like literally at this point, I'm just giving sections to artists and saying, do what you want. Like just capture the place. And this artist decided to kind of capture the bioluminescence and the flow and the chilledness of Puerto Escondido. And for me, like this bit feels really packed and busy, which it was. And then this week, you know, just feels really relaxed here and spacious. And that's exactly how it felt to me going through them as well. So yeah, there was Puerto Escondido, really beautiful, kind of not so many on the ruins front, but in terms of seeing wildlife and really appreciating some of the life that we're on this planet with, it was a really important place for me to go, I think.
Whoa.
That looks like the horseshoe in the Grand Canyon, kind of.
That's exactly what it looks like, and that's exactly why I took it. So this was part of a tour, and we actually got to go through this kind of canyon on you can see a boat down here.
You got to do
kind
that?
of just this little speck. And yeah, we went all through this canyon, and I've got a few images in here just because there were so incredible moments of seeing life in the wild as well. This was really high up, and heights make me a little nervous. But at this point, I was with a group of people that I met who were really amazing and had recommended a few books to me. One called The Untethered Soul, which I recommend people read. That's just about how to live for happiness instead of living for stress. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that book and thank them for giving it to me. This is the group. This is Angela, who's asleep and has no idea this picture exists. So hi, if you're watching. And these are two friends from Hungary who have actually gone back home now, but they were the kindest people, and they just let me tag along on the tour with them. So that was real nice. So this is a view from in the valley. So this is in near to San Cristobal de las Casas, which I was trying to think of the name of the state. Chiapas, I think it's in. And it's very much, you know, a gateway to the kind of the Yucatan. So though there's not a lot in San Cristobal, there's a lot you can do. For example, you could just get a bus across the border to Guatemala, or you could go to places like this, or to Palenque, or to the north like I did. So this here is a good, we all kind of panicked because we thought this monkey was going to be eaten by the crocodile. You can see the crocodile here. and the monkey's just in the tree here. Luckily, he stayed up there out of the way. What was amazing was watching the mannerisms of the monkey. Like, this monkey just sat kind of on the rock looking at us with just curiosity. You know, when you look into the eyes of animals and you can kind of see a thought process. I personally like to think that animals are a lot more aware than we give them credit for. You know, that we speak about consciousness as if we have it and they don't. And I actually think it's kind of a sliding scale, you know?
Yeah.
So this brings me to Palenque. Palenque was incredible, but unfortunately was a lot busier than the other places. This was a Mayan city in Chiapas, and it was made around 226 BC. I like the way that these signs say around 226, and 226 is such a specific number. I would just be like, yeah, around 200. No, around 226. It uses a whole bunch of different construction techniques to things in the other areas. And one of the only reasons we know the history of this place is because we found a tomb that luckily contained a whole bunch of dates and names and things like that. There's a ball court here. There's a royal residence. So this structure isn't necessarily to live in, but there are a lot of places in the jungle around what's been uncovered that haven't been uncovered that are actually the living quarters for people. And when I say living, it's a real different way of living to what we're used to. If someone had a home, it's where they sleep. That's it. Apart from that, you're up and out, you know, kind of think of it more like a hostel than a hotel or a house. It was abandoned after about the year 800 and was really sparsely populated by the time the Spanish arrived. But just like all the other sites, this one, there was some areas kind of down here that were being uncovered still, and you could actually go walking in the jungle. This site is in a national park of Palenque, and so you can go see waterfalls and kind of animals and things like that, as well as visiting this site. So this was a real cool one. But I would say that it was super busy. There were a lot of vendors there. So you're kind of at the top of these structures, trying to kind of take a moment and meditate, and you've just got someone yelling, t-shirts for sale, you know.
Oh my God.
And it just, so all these blue tarps here, these are all vendors selling stuff, and they literally line the path. So yeah, it just, yeah, you got some more down here, and it just kind of took the magic out a little bit. But luckily, it's a really, really beautiful place. And so, you know, in my memory, these kind of guys are falling away. And this structures kind of extend down here as well. So you can go inside some of these structures.
No way. That's really rare for these sites.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
Oh my gosh.
So you couldn't climb up this one, but yeah, the other one you could go inside. So you just got to be respectful. And looking at these structures here as well, would you agree with me that this sure looks like another one?
That's what I thought for
absolutely.
a second. Yeah,
absolutely.
But like I say, they're uncovering these things. So the more they uncover, the more they find. And eventually, you know, if I come back in a few years, this might be stripped and a whole other pyramid be found there. What's really obvious is that there were just massive civilizations here that just got kind of pushed out, and the history's lost when the place was invaded. And it's not the only place in the world to experience that either. So there's they say history is written by the victors. I would say history is scrubbed out by the victors. And it's unfortunately a loss for us. You know, we're trying to recover it, but there's only so much we can do. This is an example of their language. The written language.
Which culture?
It's a Mayan city.
Mayan, okay.
And I wouldn't be able to break them down for you. I do have a picture that kind of breaks them down, but it's amazing to think of, you know, how they kind of backwards engineered the language to figure it out. But each of these have like a constituent part that kind of make up a word or a term, or you know, say this one might say prince, and this one might say important, and this one might say born on, and this one might say Tuesday, and you know, you combine all of them to kind of get a picture of what's going on. But it just means that the sites were decorated amazingly. You can kind of see the
paint.
Yeah, So you kind of got a little roja there, a little red. So that's kind of, in fact, let me just go back here. So this is kind of how they think they probably would have looked, being in use. But like I said before, it's really guesswork, You've got to imagine sitting there, me and Vinnie, for example, having a glass of wine. That kind of probably would have happened here. We would have been chilling on the side here, and they didn't have wine bars. They just kind of would consume these things out in the open.
To our knowledge, there's a lot we're still learning.
Yeah, this is true. This I absolutely loved because there's a film I love called The Fountain where this kind of thing happens, and it's all about Mayan culture and that stars revolver that kind of the resurrection happens. So I took a picture and thought I would share this. Just because it emphasizes that we are of nature and we go back to nature no matter how advanced we get. So the Palenque, the center of the town, was quite small, but really, really relaxed. And yeah, Chiapas. Yeah, I was right. I didn't get that wrong. So this was a gorgeous piece of art. And I'm just going to leave these on screen for a second. There are 3 parts to this mural at the hotel, because I really want people to kind of take in the art. Like, for example, here. So this is a tree, but have a look at the bottom of the roots here, and they turn into fingers. So we kind of get that connection all through the cosmos up. This here is a jade mask that was found in the tomb of Palenque. What were you going to ask there, Katie?
It looks like someone's getting abducted on the top.
That's what I thought.
On here?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of going upwards, right?
Yeah.
So these here, this kind of notch with the hole in it, this was part of the ball game that they would play. And yeah, they just kind of, with their hips, hit the ball through the hole. So there were a lot of like thrusting motions during this game, I guess. It's very strange to see played, but you can look it up on YouTube if you're so inclined. But to me, like a lot of these,
that's the late show.
The late show, yeah. A lot of these look like planets and moons. So, they're playing with the balls, but they're also kind of expressed as planets and playing with these cosmic kind of things. And especially when we look here, we really kind of see, a lot of nature coming in, being intertwined with the spiral galaxies here. Obviously this isn't a massively old mural, it's a fairly modern one, but you get to see how the culture kind of appreciates these things.
Definitely.
Wow.
So that was Palenque.
Incredible, Dan.
So this has kind of been my journey so far. Mexico City, all the way down to the coast, all the way across, and up to where I currently am, which is where I about ran out of time. So this here, this is an artist's depiction of what Cholula would have looked like when it was fully built out. So what I showed you, that little structure, would kind of probably be this guy right here. So you can kind of really see how big it would have been. And you just see it for miles around, You got the volcano in the background there. Yeah, so that kind of brings me to where I ran out of time, basically.
That's incredible.
Wow.
I appreciate you sharing all that. That's really eye-opening, and it just gives me the bug. I just want to get out and travel now, which I guess leads into the next talking point, because obviously you're going to be in Colombia in about 5 weeks' time, and I'll be flying out to meet you. So yeah, what do you want to say about Colombia, your expectations, what you're actually going to be doing out there, for anybody that might not know?
Yeah, for sure. So assuming that people just haven't seen Phenomenology, basically, Vinnie and I were invited to go see a phenomenon, or to see an area where a phenomenon was said to occur. And this goes back thousands and thousands of years. The local indigenous people say that this is the spirits of ancestors. They say that it's, visitors from another world. The actual mountain that we were looking at has a flat face that's called the Mirador, which is the doorway of the gods. That's how it's described. So we were invited to kind of go up this mountain to see what we could see, to interview a lot of the locals who seem to have, UFO experiences. And yeah, to try and film it, essentially. And in season 1, I can say that Vinnie and Ash actually got, I would say, confidently, the first HD footage in history of this light phenomena, splitting into from one ball of light into triangle of 3 or so lights and changing colors as well. So in season 2, we're going back on what's called Holy Week, which is when the lights are said to be most active. And we're going to be going up the mountain with our own kind of lights with LEDs and things like that to kind of see how they compare to what we captured last year, just in case it was people with torches. We don't think it was, but got to check it. Vinnie has got a thermal drone now as well. So we're going to be using that, and we'll be able to kind of set a temperature limit to kind of say, if it's humans, only show us the human shape. So we'll definitely be able to see if it's people. And if it's not, I mean, it's
not people.
I don't think it's people. But we have to check, right?
Collect the data. Yeah. This is what I appreciate about you two. Yeah, exactly. That's what I appreciate about you two, about Phenomenology, is that you guys are documenting something that could be incredibly, I hate the word paranormal, supernatural. I mean, natural, but different. But you're doing it very cautiously and respectfully to gathering the evidence and not making conclusions before you see where it leads. I appreciate that about both of you. Are you bringing anyone new onto the team?
There are a number of new people. I'm not going to be able to remember them all off my head. Vinnie, do you have a list of names there by any chance?
Nope.
No? Cool. That's fine.
Sorry, I'll you guys on the spot.
There was literally a team meeting for season 2 that's up on YouTube. Vinnie, you could probably put that link in the description so people can get introduced to all the new folk. Priscilla's going to be joining us, Quantum Witch. We've got Elena Loftus joining us too. We've got Hayden, I forget Hayden's surname. I apologize. I'm actually going to find this one because Hayden's an incredible musician from Australia, and he is releasing a new album soon. Hayden Kalman, and yeah, there's a great song that he wrote called "What It Means to Be Human" that I think is very potent and relevant, and I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how all these different people, Priscilla's kind of coming from a more esoteric kind of point of view. Hayden's coming from a creative place. Vinnie's coming from a very data-driven place. I'm kind of, I would say, in the middle, kind of, open to a lot. And then we've got a whole bunch of other people who are coming from all their different places as well. And this speaks to the title of the show, which is Phenomenology, which literally is just referring to, and I just want to note here that the Pentagon once called UAP unidentified anomalous phenomenology, and it's curious that they did that because the word is referring to the different subjective experiences we could have of objective events. So say, for example, the Northern Lights. Some people can look at that and see, that it's a bunch of energy from the sun hitting the atmosphere and expressing as, those incredible light shows, whereas other people just think they're kind of like a supernatural thing going on, in history. Or a simpler way to put it, in fact, would be to kind of say the color red. Some people see it and see danger, other people see it and see passion. That is phenomenology in a nutshell there, just interpreting something objective differently. So yeah, I thought it was curious that the Pentagon used that and I say Pentagon, it was Jay Stratton. In one of his initial reports, he used the term phenomenology. So it's really curious that he did that, especially when you think that the phenomenon, when I say the phenomenon, there are going to be people out there that say, be specific. I mean, the phenomenon, the UFOs, that we hear that they can kind of manipulate us via our minds to make us see different things. There's that infamous case that Jacques Vallée looked at, where there was a family in France who saw something in the sky. They took a picture. What they described wasn't what was in the picture. In the picture, it was like this little star thing, whereas they saw a craft. And I think that's really important part of this whole thing to discuss. We've just had Chris Bledsoe bring his book out, and him and Ryan are very set on this being a religious thing. Whereas for me, if something came down and said, I am this, I'd be like, cool, you could be presenting yourself as that, kind of putting a facade on me for all I know. There are in nature a number of kind of animals that do this. There's a wasp. I can't remember the wasp's name now, but it basically will change the frequency with which it beats its wings, because its prey will only let things into the hive that match that frequency. So it fakes it essentially, and then just goes in the hive and has its way and eats its way through. But that is nature. It hides in plain sight, right? Little hat tips.
The trickster.
The trickster, exactly.
Incredible.
Amazing. Wow. So yeah, I can't wait for Colombia personally. I know we're going to be a lot. It's going to just be bigger and better than season 1. Bigger team, bigger investigations. We're visiting more locations, looking at other historical importance in that area of Colombia when it comes to, especially to the locals and the indigenous tribes that were there. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be filming lots there separately from the actual documentary series, aren't we, Dan? We're going to try and put our own little behind the scenes thing together, which we'll be able to release on YouTube straight away when we get back. So people should look out for that. But yeah, we don't want to say too much, obviously, and give away too many spoilers, because we'd like people to check it out when it's released, which hopefully will be this summer. But then that leads us to, I guess, the last thing I wanted to talk about, which involves all three of us, which is Roswell, New Mexico.
Woo! Finally making it out to the Mecca of UFOs.
Are we going to tell people that we're using time travel to go back and cause the crash? Or do we keep that secret for now?
I mean, I thought we were going to keep it a secret, but now you just blabbed it on YouTube.
Oh, you just added this bit out, right?
Oh, perfect. This is live, Dan. This is live. No, but I'm really excited. So are you two presenting together? Do you want to give any hints as to what you're talking about? I have ideas.
Yeah, so Vinnie and I are going to present together. I know I'm going to be talking about Colombia and Calvin. Vinnie, I don't know if you wanted to do a dance sequence or something, but
yeah, I'll just do interpretive dance all the way through. It'll just be interpretive.
Can you just sit on the corner of the stage and shame eat a tuna pizza, and we can all throw things at you while you do it? That is, I would pay to do that.
Well,
That's
yeah,
hilarious.
I hope they probably won't do that over there. So I'll just have to buy a big pizza and a tin of tuna from the Walmart or whatever it is. I don't know what the supermarkets are out there.
Supermercado. Yeah, you should hear me speaking a little more Spanish in season 2 as well, instead of just nodding and smiling at someone that I don't understand.
That's cool. I'm relying on you, man. It's gonna be good.
Roswell's going to be great. I can't wait to see you guys there. It'll be nice to have all three of us in the same location for the first time.
I know.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people as well, I think. A lot of friends will be coming together for a great experience, great conference, and just good times.
When you said great there, I thought you were going to say Graham, because Graham Randall will be joining us. So he's just one of the friends that is going to be out there. So yeah, it's going to be amazing. So the person in the comments that just said the Calvin photo is a hoax, just if we were next to a pool, I'd push you into it right now. There are no bodies of water in Calvin that show that. People have been there on site. I'm all for being skeptical about stuff, but listen to the data. Jarek, the people that actually investigated that image and had 6 images to work with, not one, deemed that there was enough movement and enough in the image to not say that it was just a reflection in a lake. Plus, I point out reflections tend to be symmetrical, and the bottom and top of the craft is not symmetrical. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of other data points. We can go into that another time, but it's been, it's a genuine image of an object. That's all we know.
Would it be fair to say, Vinnie, that people are going to hear something more kind of in the near future rather than the long term?
There is, I think something should be coming out soon that we're just tying up some loose ends with. It's no big revelation or anything. It's been a very, very difficult investigation, but yeah, it's continuing. The next update will be soon, I promise. It's just been a lot of work behind the scenes to get it done.
Yeah, like put it this way: if David had clued in people when he started looking at. Because it's not for debate that the picture was taken in Calvin. Cool again, get out. I say that in a friendly manner, by the way.
It was taken in Calvin. It's
not a pool of lava, it's a pool of water. It's definitely taken in Calvin. They spot. It's safe.
It's true on point.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, if David had announced when he started that investigation, we would be more frustrated and waiting, because he's been looking at that for decades. And if certain other people had maybe actually investigated it, we wouldn't have had to wait so long. But he was the first person to go to Calvin and put up posters asking if anyone had kind of seen the picture or knew anything about it, and narrowed it down to who took it, where they took it, and actually got one of the original pictures. So yeah, look at the data.
Wow.
We just have to start there.
Yeah, I have to say the next update isn't going to be a video on the channel or anything. It's going to be something out in the media, hopefully. That's as much as I'll say for now. But I think when that comes out, it'll be great to do another panel on this channel to really explain the depth of work that has been put in since last August up until now. The amount of work that's been done, people really need to appreciate how hard the team have worked on that. So
yeah, absolutely. And I would just emphasize they've approached it like a proper journalistic investigation as well. You know, David isn't just a random person in the community. He's a lecturer. He actually was involved in unveiling the multiple tranches of UFO documents with the National Archives in the UK. So this is a guy who isn't just on the inside. He's one of us, but he follows the data absolutely, and he's done a lot to get that data out there. And just to add as well, a lot of people always bring up that the National Archives are withholding data on the Calvin case. They don't actually have any images in those files anymore. We've seen all the images that they have. That black and white one, the image that David got is better. So the only thing they're withholding are the witness details, basically, which is, you know, we'd really like to get.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as of this live stream, David is actually visiting the archives tomorrow to look at some documents that have only been released since in 2022. So we might get some new information that has been missing from certain cases, because these are case files that are lettered A to Z, and some of them are missing, and they've now been put some of them back in, and we want to see what's in them. So you never know, in the next few days we could get some new information coming out of UK for once, which is a rare thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this costs money to do as well. It costs money to get people to look at these, to release them. So along with, you know, maybe what will be a mundane release with nothing exciting in it, we've got to ask, who's providing the funding for these things? Why is the UK having the conversation this way yet not really engaging on the whole shoot down thing? There's a lot of questions to be asked.
That's very true.
Well, that's why we got gentlemen like you guys helping to push the narrative forward, and I'm hopeful that the UK will start at least publicly taking this as seriously as I suspect they are privately.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Well, listen, guys, we've hit an hour and 40 minutes. Wow. Katie, before we send Dan away, is there anything you want to ask him before we go?
No, I think we touched on all of it. I guess, well, one last question, I guess, is where are you going next? What's on the before Colombia? You got 5 weeks in there.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, at the moment I'm in Merida, which is actually inside the crater of the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs, which I realized when I visited the museum yesterday. I've been saying wrong for my whole life. I always say a Chicxulub. It's not. The X is a ch sound, so it's Chicxulub. So yeah, okay. Good learn. But yeah, they have a really great museum here. So I've been enjoying all the dinosaur stuff and feeding my inner child, visiting the biggest crime scene on the planet, you know. But next I'm going to go see some of the cenotes, which are basically made from rocks hitting the ground and kind of making holes that filled with beautiful water, and just they look like paradise basically. You go swimming in them, as well as that Chichen Itza. And then hopefully I'll be headed to Guatemala to see Tikal, and kind of working my way down through Colombia there. Hopefully we'll find a kind of volunteer program to enjoy as well, and help give back to the communities who have been so welcoming to me.
Amazing. Well, enjoy the cenotes. They are the entrance to the Mayan underworld, if you believe the mythology. So let us know how that goes.
I will do. If you never see me again, you know where to find me, the Mayan underworld.
Okay. That's amazing. Well, listen, Dan, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone in the live chat as well for being here. Really appreciate it. Next week, I'm really looking forward to. Me and Katie have a busy couple of days because we are going to be recording an interview with Ross Coulthart, which will be released a day or two after. And then next Wednesday, we will be live here with Sean Cahill. I can't wait for that one as well. So busy week next week.
Sean is so amazing. He's going to come with a lot of grace and knowledge, and Ross is going to come with a lot of ungraceful language and knowledge.
Give me both. I love it
Perfect.
all. Yeah, amazing. But yeah, thank you again, Katie. Thank you. I'm loving it. It's great.
Me too.
Thank you for having me, guys. I love kind of coming and talking. And if you want to do this again in future, when I've got a few more kind of ancient sites under my belt, I'm more than happy to.
Absolutely, my friend. But stay safe.
Yes. Can I give me a heart attack?
On that note, guys, thank you again. And everybody, eat tuna on your pizza.